All right, good evening, folks. Welcome to this Wednesday night late edition of the People's Show. Come on in and get ready for a great conversation that we're going to have. Certainly look forward to this conversation that is an absolute plus. All right, so it's the Monday night edition of the People's Show. And not it's the Wednesday night, not the Monday night, but the Wednesday night edition of the People's Show, and a late night, late version edition of the People's Show. And thank you all for tuning in to this late broadcast of the People's Show. And of course, you heard me earlier today in the promo talking about what we need to do as those of us who have these outlets, social media outlets. Those of you who used to listen to me when I was on another network, WVON, for about 10 years, I guess I was. But it's really important. It's really important that we set out, those of us who I say that have been privileged, to have the opportunity to voice our even our opinions about things, and certainly to be able to impact public policy. I used the radio platform as I use this platform to inform us, to engage us, to inspire us, to organize us, to collaborate us, but to do that painstakingly to make sure that I am providing you with factual information about whatever the subject matter that we are talking about, whatever it is that I'm talking about, whatever it is that I believe that is important. I want to make sure that those of you who listen to me, who look to me for information, for guidance in these areas of social, economic, and social political areas that are important to our lives, that I provide you with the most accurate, factual information that you can go to and that you can verify yourself. As I said earlier, that you know disinformation, right? Here's the definition of disinformation. False information. Which is the definition of that is false information, which is intended. So that means it's willful, it's deliberate, and they know that the information is wrong. It is intended, especially to mislead with propaganda issued by an organization, a rival, or some entity. That's what disinformation is. All right. So there is a difference. Misinformation, on the other hand, right? Misinformation is incorrect, misleading information. Misinformation can exist without specific malicious intent. So that just means that people are putting out information based on their feelings, based on their opinions, right? And I've said to us that your feelings are not facts and your thoughts are not the truth. The truth is where we research information, we verify information on all of these levels, all of these areas that we verify information on to make sure that the information is accurate, that it is factual information. That's what our responsibility is. Those of us who, whether you're on the radio, whether you're on television, or even on these platforms, these podcasts, that there are hundreds of thousands of, if not millions. Anybody that is a purveyor of information or that has these outlets where people are relying on us, they trust our voices. Those of you who trust the information that I put out, I am profoundly bound to making sure that whatever information that I share with you is factual information that you can then you can verify it yourself. And if you don't verify the information, that it is information that you can rely on. And then you can go out, be better informed, and then you can help others to be better informed. That's what my responsibility is as a host of a podcast. Not simply to be here to be entertaining or to be salacious or to call names or any of that sort of thing. It is to be informative so that we can have progress and we can make progress as a people. The people that I largely speak to are the Black community. It is the Black community. And we talk about social, political, and social economic issues, conditions, policies, and strategies and ideas on how we can change the trajectory, that we can change the conditions of Black people in our communities. And the only way that we're going to do that is that we have to, one, make sure that we are operating from a position of integrity and providing the kinds of information that is important in order for us to make progress. But I have been hearing people get on these platforms, get on the airways, and just spew out wrong, misleading misinformation. Now, if they're doing it intentionally, then that's called disinformation. If they're not doing it intentionally, it's misinformation. But whatever the case is, it's still wrong information. We've got to make sure that we don't do that. I certainly know that I have to make sure that I don't do it. But what I say to you as viewers, as listeners, as reliant on whoever it is that you believe to be your trusted voice for information, verify the information. Verify the information. We are in a bad place. We're in a bad place because it has been sanctioned that misinformation can be construed as truth based on a person's position, based on their title, or their perceived socioeconomic status. And so what those people say, or if they certainly have a wide platform or pulpit that they can spew and purvey information or misinformation or disinformation, that people will look at them based on what they believe their status to be, so that whatever they say, that there are people who just adopt what they say as the gospel, as the truth, because most people are not going to go and do the reading, the research, the analyzation, and the verification of information. They're not going to do it. So they have people that they listen to and that they watch, and whatever that person that they have given their trust to provides to them, they accept that as being truth. Unfortunately, there are some people who have huge platforms that they're considered to be influencers, and they are, but the word influence is not always that they're influencing to the positive. There are some who are influencing to the positive, and there are some who are influencing to the negative. But the bottom line is that they influence people. They encourage people to go with whatever it is that they say. We have to do better. We, meaning those of us who are on this side of these microphones that you lend your time to, where we're providing you with information, and you're looking to that information for as being information of truth that you can either act on, that encourages you to make a decision one way or the other, to be involved one way or the other, or in cases of elections, to vote for a person or a policy or referendum. You look to people that you trust. So the people who are on the other side, and I'm saying to you, those of you who trust me, I appreciate that. But I also respect you enough not to convey information to you that is going to mislead you down a wrong path. I am going to do all that I can to tell you the truth, even if you disagree or it hurts, or it's not a truth that you want. I'm going to tell you the truth. And you decide what you do with that information. But I have to always make sure that whatever information that I am putting out, that information is never going to mislead a person into a detrimental situation because I gave them misleading information, that I misinformed them, or that I willingly told them something that I knew to be the opposite or not true of what it was that I said. That's what my responsibility is. That's my responsibility, and that's every person's responsibility, is that if I cannot convince you to go in a path or in a direction that I think is the right direction by telling you the truth, and I give you some information or misinformation, knowing that it's not the truth, that will never, ever be Mark Wallace. But I'm hearing that from some outlets. Now, I am not going to call any person's name because this is not about one-upping anybody. It's not about that. It's not about that. But we are in these times where the truth seems to be no longer important. And there are a lot of people who are easily to take what they have heard. I heard and they said. You hear people say that all the time in your conversation. Well, you know, they said. Well, you know, I heard and they said can be two of the biggest lies ever told. Be careful when someone is saying to you, I heard, or they said. Who are the they, and what did you do to verify what you heard and what they said? How have you substantiated that? Information that is factual, verifiable, is information that comes from multiple sources, that is verified at multiple sources. If somebody puts some information out to you and it only came by one source, that information is probably not true. I'm not saying that it's not true, but more than likely it's not true, and you should not repeat it. If you cannot verify information, critical information, that you can't verify that information on multiple mediums, at least 3 credible sources, that information more than likely is disinformation or misinformation, and you should not repeat it. You should get out of the habit of listening to people gossip about other people or making suggestions to get people to hear what they say. Well, you know, they say it and I heard it on Facebook, and they had it on Facebook that such and such did this, or such and such did this, and he gave them, and you weren't there, and you didn't take the time. If you thought it to be important, you didn't take the time to say, I hear what you're saying, but I'm not going to repeat that. Because before I go repeating something, I want to make sure that what it is that I am saying, it is true. And whether or not what it is that's been repeated to you has any redeeming impact on anybody's life. Does it impact your life? Is it going to impact others' lives? Is it going to make their lives better? Is it going to make your life better, or is it going to make it worse? There are too many important things going on and too many critical things that we need to pay attention to than to be dumbed down with misinformation or disinformation. And those of you who have platforms that you speak to hundreds, thousands of people or millions of people, and particularly within the Black community. If you do not know what you are talking about, if you do not know the facts of what you are talking about, not the fodder, not the fiction, not the I heard, and not the they said, know what the facts are before you open your mouth to purvey that through the airwaves to the people who trust you, because they are going to go and take what you have said and share it with someone else or act on what you have said that could be to their detriment or to someone else's detriment. So we are duty bound, we're morally bound, we're ethically bound to make sure that what we are purveying through our outlets, not to be sensationalist so that we can get more viewers or that we can get more people to pay attention to us. Because if I am talking to just a few people and I can provide those few people with information that they can make informed decisions to act on, to get engaged, to get involved, to be inspired by, then that's my audience. All of us would love to have a widespread audience of thousands, millions of viewers. But that's not why we do the work, and certainly not why I do this work. I don't do it for pay. I don't do it for money. I don't receive money for doing it. In most cases, I'm paying money. I pay a producer, the equipment I buy, all of the help I fund, and I don't fundraise. I fund it because it is, in my judgment, it's an important work. And there are certain people who rely on the information that I bring, that I put out. I do an extraordinary amount of reading, research, analyzation, interviews, talking with people within the medium who have information to verify, to get information, so that I can bring the truth to you. And hopefully that we can engage and collaborate together so that we can make some real progress, substantial, substantive progress for our community. Rosie, can you bring me a bottle of water, please? That's what my responsibility is. That's what all of our responsibility is. And I've been very concerned about this over, for quite some time, and have not really talked about it. But it is important. It is important that you as a viewer, you as a listener, that you verify this information. Thank you. That you verify information that people provide to you. And it has to be verified by multiple credible sources. Now, I'm not talking about your tabloid gossip. I don't care what entertainer is sleeping with what entertainer. That's none of my business. It's frankly none of your business, and it's not going to impact your life at all. It's not going to impact your life to know what's going on or not going on in somebody else's personal life. It is a waste of your oxygen and a waste of your brain cells to spend time talking about someone else's life for which you know very little about, if at all. So I spend my time talking about the things that matter. I spend my time talking to you about things that matter and things that could and would impact your life and your livelihood. That's what I spend this time talking about. And I know that there has been this consistent misinformation about the Democratic Party as well as the Republican Party, about Joseph Biden, Kamala Harris, Donald Trump, and the group that supports him. It's fact versus fiction, period. It's right versus wrong. Again, information that's put out or whatever statements that people put out as statements of truth, they need to be verifiable through 3 or more credible sources, not tabloid sources, but credible sources verifying the same thing, providing the factual information and data and evidence that substantiates what someone has conveyed and articulated. Period. Now, all this talk about Joe Biden and Kamala Harris and Black people being frustrated and that they're going to vote red or vote for the Republicans. Here's some factual information. The fact is, number one, we as a Black community, whether it's here in Chicago, whether it's in Detroit, whether it's in Kansas City, whether it's in New York City, whether it's in Minnesota, whether it's in Miami, whether it's in Fort Lauderdale, whether it's in Orlando, whether it's in Tallahassee, whether it's in Atlanta, whether it's in Philadelphia, wherever we are, Arkansas, Mississippi, South Carolina, North Carolina, Oklahoma, wherever we are as Black people, to this date, we are a disorganized people. And because we are disorganized and because we have thus to this point not organized or seen the importance of doing it, we on many fronts get taken advantage of, or our communities don't get the benefit of the resources that we should, for one reason, that we are disorganized. You will never make progress, not significant progress. We, as a people, will not make progress by operating in silos. Only a organized people or a properly organized people will be able to liberate its people. That's the truth. That's a fact. You can verify what I just said to you, that we are not organized. We don't have power because we're not organized. We can be powerful. We can have determined, intentional power. If we got focused, if we got organized amongst each other, with each other, and stop making excuses why we're not organized, it is a fallacy, an absolute fallacy, that we think that we can actually make progress by being or operating with under the idea or under the guise of individualism. It is a fallacy. That all is okay if I make it. Everything is well if I make it. Well, let me just say to you, that is suicide. It is suicide for a repressed and an oppressed people. It's suicide for the Black community to somehow think, because there are a few people who have made some progress, who have made some so-called advancement. And let me just get this, just 1 second. I should have been a little bit better prepared, but I had to get this for you. Okay, I had to get this for you. Now, one of my mentors, kind of lost my earpiece. My producer is not going to be very happy with me because of this, but one of my mentors by the name of Stokely Carmichael, later becoming the Kwame Ture. So individually, Black people individually have always done well. Even in slavery, the house slave had certain privileges that the field slave did not enjoy. They got to sleep in a comfortable bed, but they still were a slave. They got to wear nice clothes. They got to eat inside the house. They enjoyed certain privileges, but they were still a slave. The mentality that we have heard people repeat that says, I have mine, you get yours, must be abandoned. We have got to rid ourselves of that mentality. So because you have your good job, your little business, and you're able to provide for yourself and provide for your family, and you're able to go and entertain and go to a few shows, go to some concerts, travel a little bit, drive around in the car of your choice, get your hair done every week, every other week, make sure that you're well manicured. All of those things are nice. But as Black people, here's a conversation that one of my biblical's favorite expositors, the late Mac King Carter, was having one day with a Jewish rabbi. And the two of them had this conversation, and they compared the experiences of oppression with a Jewish rabbi, and we were in Louisville at the National Baptist Congress. And this rabbi mentioned this to us. He said, he noted three of the major differences in Jewish and Black American oppression. One, he said, is the fact that Jews, because of their numbers, did not have the luxury of individualism. He said that in our community, both Cohen and Leibowitz have to make it in order for Jews to survive. That's number one. Secondly, he said, the African Americans were the only oppressed group. In his observation, that Black people were the only oppressed group that used the oppressor as their model for liberation. Let me say that again. He said that we, Black people, that he observed, used the oppressor as our model for liberation. What did he mean by that? That we subjugate each other and we go off into these silos. I got mine over here, you get yours over here, and don't get in my space. You do you, and I'll do me. That's individualism. But we treat each other subconsciously we treat each other with the same degradation that the oppressor oppressed us by. He went on to note that Black Americans were the only oppressed group that used the oppressor as their model for liberation. The third thing he stated, he said that our love for the enemy thwarts us in our struggle for liberation. We are trying to get people who don't like us, people who have been socially engineered and socialized that Black people are inferior. It is systemic within their socialization. Now, please hear me. This is not about getting anybody to be anti anybody else. In fact, it is to quite the contrary. I don't want any of us hating anybody of our white counterparts. No. We must behave better towards them and towards ourselves. But we've got to love on ourselves. We cannot use the oppressor and the oppressor's model as our liberation. He went on to say that Jews do not love Hitler and are suspicious of Germans. He said, however, in reality, it is not that Black people are in love with white people. The truth is that we have imposed their same hate on ourselves. I know that is hard for us to swallow. It is hard for us to be quiet. It is hard for us to swallow. But in order for us to get better, we have got to understand where we are. In order for us to do differently, we have to understand where we are. We have to diagnose what and analyze what our condition is and change our behavior so that we can change how we engage in this. Now, he didn't make those statements. He didn't make those statements. So, and in fact, he said it. He wasn't making a statement to say that Black people should hate white people. No, we shouldn't. We shouldn't hate on anybody. What we should hate is evil. We should hate bad behavior. And we should beat back against it. That's what we should be doing. But in order for us to do that, we've got to love on ourselves. We've got to abandon the idea of I got mine, you get yours. Stokely Carmichael said that no Black person in this country makes any advancement solely based on his or her talent or worth. He went on to say that all individual advancement is based on mass struggle. We make no progress in this world without shedding our blood. Therefore, brothers and sisters, your advancement and success does not belong to you. It belongs to the people. And if you do not use your success or advancement for the benefit of your people, it is a betrayal of the people who shed their blood for you. That our liberation is not coming by a personality, not one man, not one woman. If that is the case, we would have been liberated a long time ago. We would have been liberated by Dr. King. We would have been liberated by Malcolm X. We would have been liberated by Marcus Garvey. We would have been liberated by Barry Bethune-Cookman. We would have been liberated by Adam Clayton Powell. We would have been liberated by Dr. or Barack Obama. We would have been liberated if it's up to an individual. We would have been liberated a long time ago of all of those freedom fighters that fought and died and scrubbed their backs on sidewalks and withstood lynching and withstood ridicule. We would have been liberated by now. Our liberation will only come through our mass cooperation, through being organized together as one mass independent block of Black people that are pro-Black, not anti-white, not anti-Hispanic, not anti-anybody else, but pro-Black people. We have to abandon our self-centeredness, and we have to abandon the hole in the fence concept of success. The hole in the fence concept of success, while a reality for some individuals, is only a frustrating mirage for the masses. The American myth is that anybody can make it in these United States of America. But the one who perpetuates this doctrine holds the keys to success in his hand. The hole in the fence. If you think about how a fence is set up, usually it's got a bunch of holes in it, but it also has some prevention in it. And therefore, if the masses are all heading toward the fence and only a few people get through the fence, what this really means is that the oppressor throws up in the face of the frustrated masses. They throw up examples like Oprah Winfrey, Michael Jordan, Michael Jackson, Denzel Washington, Bill Cosby, on and on and on. These people who have, quote unquote, made it. So if they've made it in these areas, then so can you make it. That's how the oppressor continues to oppress, is to throw these people up and to suggest that we have made it. But when the masses start going toward the hole in the fence, which is supposed to lead to success, the masses discover that the hole in the fence has been mended. And then there becomes this great blockade that you can't get through. You can't break through. We've been distracted. We've been misled. We've been disinformed. We've been misinformed. We've been taken advantage of. And we've been playing right into that hand. Just listen to your conversation. Just listen to your conversation. You'll end up talking about one of several basketball players. You have 500,000 kids vying for 300 positions. You have parents who all believe that their son or daughter is the next phenom in whatever sport that there is, because they've looked at people like Michael Jordan, Charles Barkley, Shaquille O'Neal, people of the day, LeBron James. Not a critique of these people, and certainly not a smack at these people. We're glad for their success, but their success is not the typical, and it is not what is the norm for an oppressed people. It is not the model. We celebrate it, but it is not the model. It's really more of a distraction. It's a distraction. So one writer says, the question is, what is going to be our attitude towards those who got through the fence? That depends on the attitude of the brother or sister who made it over. If their attitude becomes that of the oppressor, then they simply replicate the oppressor and therefore become the enemy of the oppressed. But if they are on the other side of the fence, sharing expertise, money, presence, and other resources for liberation, then they are the blessed of the earth. That's what Stokely Carmichael was talking about. In other words, if we're going to build a great people, we must adopt a collective approach in overcoming oppression. Therefore, we do not have the luxury of playing the game of the one-upsman. Sure. And someone has said, we will either hang together or we will simply just hang. Those are the truths. And that's where we are if we're going to make it. Now we are here in Chicago. I'm from Miami, Florida. I'm a small town, Black community, Richmond Heights, Florida. It was built back right after World War II by a retired Air Force airman, Air Force pilot by the name of Frank Crawford Martin. But there's only about 13% of Black people in all of Miami. Really, 13% of Black people in all of the state of Florida. Here in Chicago, we're a third of the population. 1/3 of the population. We have more than 600,000 registered Black people, men and women, in Chicago. Still yet the largest single voting bloc of any ethnic group in Chicago, even though we've lost population. But we've been losing population for more than 30 years. But we've lost the largest number of Black population in the last 10 or 20 years. But yet we are still the largest single ethnic voting bloc, or registered, because we're not a voting bloc. Not yet. We haven't amassed power yet because we largely don't understand what our conditions are. And I'm trying to get us there. I'm trying to get us to understand that the healing of this is in us, is within all of us. We have to share in it. We have to share in it. We cannot play this game of individualism. One-upsmanship so that somebody can see that you have made it is a distraction, and it's a terrible disservice. Now, the Republican Party, for those of you who want to think that the Republican Party is an alternative, let me just give you a little information. This is factual information that you can go and you can verify. But I'm telling us that the Republican Party of the day is not beneficial, nor does it care about the health or the welfare of the Black community. It does not. So let me just go down a little bit of research to give you some examples. To give you some examples of why that is. So, in this time that we're in, which will happen in November in this election, and I'm saying it right now, and I'm going to back it up with the facts that I am a registered Democrat. I am a registered Democrat. I am not a loyalist as a Democrat. I simply know that is the body by which we can get the most done for our communities. However, we can even infiltrate that body to deliver more opportunities from education to economics if we organized. If we organized. And we need to start to doing that in the very local areas that we are, which is why I am trying to get us organized here in Chicago, in Cook County, and the state of Illinois, that we can be the model for cooperative Black engagement and involvement in liberation. We have the numbers by which we can set that foundation for the entire Black community in these United States. But it's not the Republican Party that we can work with. We can organize ourselves, and we can certainly infiltrate, and we can penetrate these systems with people who are of the Democratic Party, and maybe, just maybe, we may be able to change a few minds on the other side. But I don't think that that's really the case. Really not the case. So I need to make this, how do I get this back? Okay. So we lost the feed through the Instagram. And so we'll just, hopefully they can go on the YouTube page and they'll be able to pick it up, or come on the Facebook page. All right. So I want to take some time, and I want to go through some of these facts. I'm going to come back and give you a little bit more of that information. So, but for those who have been touting the Republican Party, do you know that what the Republicans did between 2020 and 2021 in red states? The Republican Party and Republicans locally and in states have purged more than 19,200,000 people from the voter rolls. If you live in a red state, you live in a place like Indiana, you live in a place like Kentucky, you live in a place like Mississippi, you live in a place like South Carolina, you live in a place like Georgia, a little purple, you live in a place like Florida, you need to check your voter registration eligibility every single month leading up to the election. Let me say it again. You need to check your voter registration every month leading up to the election. Republicans, not Democrats, Republicans have purged 19,200,000 voters from the voting rolls. I just want to give you some information. You can go and verify this. You can verify all of this. So, talking about voter purge rates, according to an analysis, new data reveal that counties with a history of voter discrimination have continued purging people from the rolls at elevated rates. Using data released by the Federal Election Commission, the EAC, in June, a new Brennan Center analysis found that between 2016 and 2018, counties with a history of voter discrimination have continued purging people from the rolls at much higher rates than any other county. The phenomenon began after the Supreme Court's 2013 ruling in Shelby County versus Holder, a decision that severely weakened the protection of voter rights of the Voters' Right Act of 1965. The Brennan Center first identified this troubling voter purge trend in a major report released in July of 2018. Before the Shelby County decision, Section 5 of the Voting Rights Act required jurisdictions with a history of discrimination to submit proposed changes in voting procedures to the Department of Justice or a federal court for approval, a process known as pre-clearance. After analyzing the 2019 EAC data, they found at least 17 million voters were purged nationwide between 2016 and 2018, similar to the number saw between 2014 and 2016, but considerably higher than we saw between 2006 and 2008. The median purge rate over the 2016 to 2018 period in jurisdictions previously subject to pre-clearance was 40% higher than the purge rate in jurisdictions that were not covered by Section 5 of the Voting Rights Act of 1965. If purge rates in the counties that were covered by Section 5 were the same as the rates in non-Section 5 counties, as many as 11 million fewer individuals would have been removed from voter rolls between 2016 and 2018. To be clear, they report the total number of voters removed by a county for any reason. Election officials purge voters that they believe are ineligible for a variety of reasons, including death and moving outside the jurisdiction. The analysis does not assess how many voters have properly or improperly been purged. The methodology: every 2 years, the EAC administers a survey to election officials around the county and around the country as the election administration and the voting surveys. The survey includes a host of questions about the state of voter registration in the jurisdiction and the experience of most recent federal elections. Jurisdictions are requested to report on information including how many new registrations occurred between the federal election, the number of ballots cast on election day, and the number of polling sites that were open on election day. The jurisdictions are also asked to report how many voters were removed from the registration rolls or purged over the 2-year period that preceded the most recent federal election. These data form the backbone of the substantial or the statistical analysis in last year's report, and we use them again here. The election jurisdiction in the country are asked to respond to the EAVS survey every 2 years, but in 2018, some in Alabama and in Texas did not report their purge numbers. Although this makes the data less than ideal, the EAC survey remains the best source of for nation information on voter purges. So those numbers come from red states. This is information that you can go and you can verify. You can verify this information. Excuse me. I'm going to probably put this information up on, I'll share this information and put this up on my Facebook page. All right. These are some things that you probably didn't know. Now, for those who want to talk about the GOP and the Republicans and how Black people are going to be voting for Republicans, let me tell you, that's a Barry Goldwater talking point since 1996. That they spew every 2 and 4 years that black people are going to be supporting the Republican candidates by 15 or 20%. But those numbers have never met that. Black people are not ignorant. Black people are not stupid. They understand where the best opportunity of helping black people largely has been with the Democratic Party. So when we start talking about what the GOP's favorite phrase when it comes to presidential politics appears to be, when we look back, nobody knew at the time. When a president is sworn into office, doesn't matter how much evidence of crimes, irregularities committed to get them there, both the press and the electorate just seems to want to ignore whatever that evidence is and just continue to move along. There's really never been a successfully contested presidential election in American history. And that is why the GOP, the grand old party, the Republican Party, they're going to count on, because they've never been held accountable, they're going to count on, and besides the fact most people in the country are registered Democrats, and the Republicans have a very hard time being able to demonstrate where they have actually head up with none of the nefarious things that they do, that they can actually fair and square win an election. So they're going to count on getting away with their crimes against the electoral democracy this fall. The big question for America will be, what did we miss that we should have known during the time? Here are some examples of what we're talking about. When Richard Nixon ran against the incumbent Vice President Hubert Humphrey in 1968, nobody knew at that time that Nixon's campaign had reached out to the South Vietnamese leadership and made promises to make them rich if they refused to go along with the Paris talks, and thus sabotage the peace deal that Lyndon Baines Johnson had worked out with them earlier that same year. A week before the election, LBJ discussed with Republican Senator Everett Dirksen, who agreed that it was treason. Nonetheless, both of them took the story to their grave. America didn't learn about Nixon's treachery until Lyndon Baines Johnson's library finally published that page or that tape recording of the phone call. Ronald Reagan, when Ronald Reagan ran against Jimmy Carter, nobody knew at the time that Reagan's campaign had cut a deal with the mullahs of Iran to hold the hostages, making Carter appear fatally weak and politically impotent. I have long said that there has not been a legitimately elected Republican since Eisenhower. When in 2000, the election recount ordered by the Florida State Supreme Court was halted by 5 corrupt Republicans on the United States Supreme Court, handing the White House to George W. Bush by a disputed 537 votes. Nobody knew at the time that Florida Governor Jeb Bush's Secretary of State, Katherine Harris, had commissioned a huge purge of voters using the list of Texas felons that was 68% Black and Hispanic that they purged from the voting rolls. These are all Republicans. These are all facts that I'm telling you about. This is all information that you can go and you can verify. And my point is just this, and it is just this simple. These are not people within this party that will be beneficial to our communities. If you look at the policies, the legislation that has been passed under this administration, under Joe Biden and Kamala Harris, more than 18 million jobs, which is 10 times more than the last 3 Republicans combined. 800,000 manufacturing jobs ranging between $60,000 and $89,000 a year. 3.9% unemployment, the lowest Black unemployment in American history, the lowest unemployment for Hispanics in American history, the lowest unemployment for women in 70 years, the lowest Black poverty rates in history. Inflation is down. Wages are up beyond inflation, more than 4.5%. The economy is booming at 5.2% in the last quarter. In the last 2 years, more people moved to California from Florida, from a red state. So these are just a few things that we have to understand the facts about, not the fiction, not the fodder, not someone's opinion. This is information that you can go and you can verify. That's why it's important for us to read, research, analyze, and verify. That's why it's important for us to do this. Let me just go through just a little bit more of this. So what you're going to see happening, and they're trying to do it now, where the Saudis have cut the production of 1.2 million barrels a day, so that the cost of gas can increase, because everybody knows that if the cost of gas goes up, they blame it on the president. And the president of the United States of America has nothing, zero, to do with the cost of gas going up or going down. The president doesn't have anything to do with that. That's the Saudis and the Iranians manipulating. And when they cut production, which they do, depending upon who is in the White House, to see if they can't manipulate and they can't influence the election. President of the United States has nothing to do with that. Can't dictate to them how much oil to produce or not. But there are some things that we can do is we can stop exporting oil to these countries, these bad actors. If we nationalize it and stop exporting since before, go back to where it was before Reagan, we wouldn't be as dependent. But we have become more energy independent of these under this administration. So these are just a few things, and I'm going to continue to bring you information that you can verify, information that you can trust, because that is what our job is. Now, let me say this. It is important that we organize ourselves together, not about a personality. It is about all of us. It is about our survival as a people. There is a concerted effort, whether you see it or not, or believe it or not. You just go in some areas where there are even communities down where I'm from, down in Miami, in the South Dade area, where the population of the Black community is being systematically pushed out. I go home, I'm from a community that was 100% Black up until 1994. When Hurricane Andrew hit, many people took flight. They got their insurance claims and they took flight, sold their homes. And the people who were buying most of those homes were people from a different ethnic group. South Americans moved in, buying these homes. And the community welcomed them. But you could see that there is a resistance from those that people from our community welcome them in. There is a resistance of those people that were welcomed in. And there is an effort to somehow erase a people and a history of a people by doing certain things like limiting access to public facilities. But these are acts, in my judgment, that if we don't get organized wherever we are, whether it's here in Chicago, Cook County, state of Illinois, or whether it's in Richmond Heights, West Perrine, Gould, Homestead, all those areas. And it looks like to me that, and I listen to him quite a bit. I go home several times, and there were some challenges where they were denying access. But it wasn't just about a party, or it wasn't just about a reunion. It is the principle of systemically what that demonstrated to me was we are in control of what's going on in your community, and we're going to determine that. However, I think that it's an awakening moment. I think it's an awakening moment. And I think we're having those moments and we're having those times that we're having to realize that the racial progress that has been conveyed has not been the kinds of racial progress that has been conveyed. Over these last years, with the presidency of Donald Trump, who has conveyed the kinds of confusion, the kind of bitterness, the kind of indecency, has given license to a group of people who have believed that way for a long time. Has basically given license to them to say, you know what? We have a champion of our cause at the helm, and they have said that it is okay for us to be free to act on our hate. So we haven't made the kind of racial progress that we have been led to believe. We just hasn't happened. And we're seeing it unfold right before us. We're seeing it unfold right before us, of the attempt to destroy democratic norms. We have a system that they simply want to blow up. They're not interested in solving problems. They're just interested in completely blowing it up. This is like the hole or the draining of the pool, right? The emptying of the pool. In Texas, there was a story where there was a pool that was an all-white pool. Only white people could go to this pool. And someone sued, and they had to allow for other people other than whites to come into the pool. They shut the pool down just to make sure that if other people can come into the pool, then what they're going to do is they're going to stop their own kind from coming to the pool, just to make sure that they do not allow for black people to come and swim in that pool. What's the point? The point is that there is so much of that kind of disdain and racial disparate treatment that they will hurt their very own in order not to have to deal with these black people. Another point, you go to January 20th, 2009 at 1 o'clock at the Caucus Room restaurant, right across from the inauguration. More than 15 people from Congress, led by Jim DeMint and Mitch McConnell, Newt Gingrich, and others, who made a vow that they will do everything within their power to reject and to deny passage of any policies that Barack Obama, as president of the United States, anything of his agenda, try to get done. Well, at that time, when Barack Obama was elected, they had the supermajority in the Senate. They had the House and the Senate, but they only had the Senate supermajority for 74 days of his presidency, of his first term, because Ted Kennedy took ill and unfortunately passed away. So he only had the supermajority for 74 days of his first term in office. So the point is, they will hurt their very own in order to make sure that they don't have to be involved with Black people on certain levels. These are just the facts. And I said to you in the beginning, all you have to do is do the research, verify the information with 3 credible sources. So we have to organize. And when we organize, I am telling you, you will then see that you have real power. You will be able to make those people who are in positions of power respond to the demands of the Black community like we have never seen them respond before. You don't even have to wait to an election. Just demonstrate that we have become a widespread, organized, independent Black bloc of voters. That's what the whole 10 by 10 to win idea is. If you text 10x10 to the number 855-909-1385, you'll receive the Zoom meeting link tomorrow at noon. And you can jump on the meeting by Zoom and get an understanding of what we are, what we are doing. Organizing. That's what we're doing, is organizing our people across our district lines, across our ward lines, across our communal lines, across our neighborhood lines, connecting the city of Chicago with Park Forest or Forest Park, Maywood, Oak Park, and connecting with Riverdale, connecting with Posen, connecting with Markham, connecting with Country Club Hills, Hazelcrest, Flossmoor, Olympia Fields, Mattison, Park Forest, River Oaks. We've got to connect ourselves together in order that we may have power. So what I'm asking you to do, and I'm asking you to spread the information. Spread the information. And again, when somebody puts out information to you, if you cannot verify that information by 3 credible sources, it is information, or it's misinformation, or it's disinformation. And if you can't verify it, don't repeat it. Because you have people who trust what you say just like you listen to me and trust what I say. I have a duty to make sure that the information that I give to you is verifiable, truth, and facts, not fodder, not opinion. You can go and you can find that information. I am in no way indicating or saying that we're above making a mistake or making a misstatement. I'm sure I've made mistakes. And when I have recognized those misstatements, I own up to it and will continue to do that. Or if I say something that is not true or accurate, my producer will pull my coattail and remind me of that. And we have to clear it up on our next podcast. It's the right thing to do. All right. So we're gonna wrap it up here for tonight. But listen, I am going to continue to bring you the facts about what has been delivered through this administration and how that is going to impact the lives of Black people for decades to come, and how we have got to organize ourselves to make sure that we can benefit or continue to benefit to transform our communities. There are billions and billions of dollars coming to our state as a result of the CHIPS and Science Act, as a result of the American Rescue Act, as a result of the Broadband Act. All of these have come through the Biden-Harris administration. He has passed more policies, more than any of his predecessors, going all the way back to Franklin Delano Roosevelt. And I believe, this is my opinion, I believe that Joe Biden, that's why I have no problem with his age, because I want somebody with real wisdom at the helm. Not somebody who happens to be 40 years old without any experience or little experience, certainly in this field. I believe that Joe Biden's tenure as vice president for 8 years and his tenure in the Congress for more than 40 years, whatever mistakes that he's made, I believe that all of that he has used to channel to make real wise decisions in getting things done for the American public and getting things done for Black communities. Do you realize that this administration has given $6.5 billion to HBCUs, while his predecessor zeroed it out in their budget? And if it wasn't for Walter Kimbrough and Alma Adams from South Carolina, if it wasn't for them, the $250 million that went to minority homes, only $90 million went to HBCUs through the previous administration. The broadband, $47 billion in broadband, which is going to help a lot of HBCUs because there are a lot of these areas that don't have access to broadband. So all of these policies are going to benefit Black people, certainly some in the short term and in the long range. We have coming to Illinois, some $56 billion are going to be coming to Illinois, where you just saw that the governor announced that he's going to be giving over $800 million to Rivian over the next decade, 20 years or something. All of that money is coming from the Infrastructure and the CHIPS and Science Act, which are investments to attract major industries. That's where we have to be. And it's also, in my judgment, we can use being organized to push the repairing of the breach within our communities, from education to economics, reparations. That's why it's important for us to organize, because we can get and we can demand all those things that are pertinent to a thriving people, but we will not get it operating in silos. It will not happen. We will make incremental progress that we can't even measure, where you'll have a few people that may benefit, but not the masses. And it will not change the conditions in our communities that are so desperately needed. So they're fueling the automotive company in Belvidere, the battery plant out in Kankakee, and the AI or the CompuLab that the governor is talking about potentially out on the old U.S. Steel site. We need to have that kind of industry funded or invested in our communities. So we have to have people who can have these bold ideas to go after these institutions and to convince them of the workforce that's available for productivity right here in Chicago. Thereby bringing these industries, that means that people who in our community are some of the most vulnerable, the ones that you all call Pookies and Ray Rays, we can have opportunities created for them to start in a career. Do you realize that in manufacturing today in Illinois, the starting salaries in manufacturing are $84,000 to $89,000 a year. $84,000 to $89,000 a year. We need to put ourselves in a position that we can make sure that that is happening and being brought to our communities. When we can expand the tax base in our communities, when we can fuel the tax base in our communities, then we can develop better learning institutions for children, for your child, for your grandchild or grandchildren, or not your children at all, but for all children. This is where we must be. This is where we need to get to. And we're not going to get there operating in silos. We're not going to do it. We're not going to do it with, individuals trying to be celebrities. We are servants. We are not celebrities. We are servants for the liberation and the advancement of our people. That's what we are. And besides, when you're serving somebody else and you're serving the needs of somebody else outside of yourself, when you help others to get up, guess what happens? You get up too. You elevate as well. You get lifted too. But that is the attitude that we have to have, one, to the other. That is what the whole focus and the mission of 10 by 10 to win is. That's what its mission is. To empower us to make a demand and have that demand met. To make multiple demands and have those demands met. Have those demands met from education to economics and everything in between. But you have to get engaged. You have to commit to getting engaged. You have to see the importance of your participation. You don't even have to be on the front line speaking. We just need you to show up. Be in the number. Be in the number, and there is somebody else that will be your proxy. Somebody else will speak on your behalf. But you need to be engaged, involved, in order for us to be a strong, independent body that can speak to those who are in control of the power structure, that they have to respect our communities. Our communities can't be looked over. And if we don't take seriously and take inventory of the condition of our communities, we may not have a community. We may not have a community. Now that's going to take some time, but I think that we need to take the time to understand that that is what could happen for the future of, our children and grandchildren and Black people in general, if we don't act and act now. All right, look, that's going to do it for tonight. That's going to do it for this podcast. I'll be back. Don't forget to text 10x10 so that you can get into the text alert. All right. I'm going to put it in the chat. I'll put it in the chat. All right. So that you can get the Zoom alert. So I send out the Zoom link at noon on Thursdays, tomorrow, for the 6:30 Zoom meeting, which is the 10 by 10 to win. The purpose of that meeting is to organize us together across all of our political lines, ward lines, neighborhood lines, township lines, connecting us together. And I promise you, if we do this, and boy, if we did it before the DNC, if we made that number before the DNC, it will have political consequence, political consequences. You will see people come and want to chat with us. Because they know the importance of using our votes. But we have to take control of our votes. Rather than somebody determining our votes, we have to take control of our vote and determine who it is that's going to be a candidate that we support and that we call up, not someone that the people in the party determines that these are the candidates for us. No, we determine who the candidates are for us. And you watch, if we build this block in the respectable numbers of just 200,000, the ultimate goal is 1 million, but if we build it to 200,000, you will see how we collectively are addressed by the mayor, Cook County Board President, the governor, the whole political structure, because now Black folks have organized in a very powerful, sustainable, institutionalized manner. Then you will see a whole different level of how they respect our communities and respect you as a people. All right, till the next time, thank you all very much for tuning in. Good to see you, St. Boogie, Beatrice. It's good to see you, my sister, and I hope to see you tomorrow night on our Zoom meeting. And those of you who are tuned in tonight, please text 10X10 to the number 55909-1385. Let us come together. Let us build the independent block across all of our neighboring lines, and watch for yourself what happens when we amass ourselves together. You will be amazed before your very eyes at how the people, even currently, who are in position, shifts how they respond to us. Let's do first things first, and we will get the substance of what it is that we need. All right, that's going to do it for tonight. Thank you all so much for tuning in to the podcast. All right, you all have a great night, and I'll look to see you all tomorrow on the Zoom meeting, 10 by 10 to win.